just by show of hands, who here is willing to admit that the Trump-Russia collusion hoax was indeed incorrectly reported by the mainstream media? Is there anybody here able to admit that that was incorrect reporting?
It wouldn't be really appropriate for us to answer the question.
Why not? Why would that be inappropriate? I think it would be inappropriate. What's inappropriate is lying to the public.
You just put on a masterclass at that point.
We're doing our job asking you.
Was the public lied to, or did the media report on this set of facts that were provided?
So that's a fair question. I actually think that the public was lied to long after the media systematically still understood that this was the product of the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was a piece of Russian disinformation provided by the Hillary Clinton campaign that was served up to the federal government as a basis for issuing a FISA warrant to then potentially infiltrate a member of the opposition party. If this was Bush and Cheney doing it to John Kerry, this would have been the stuff of scandal, impeachment, and worse. And yet, I think it was an intentional lie that the media said that account, which we now know to be true, was actually the Russian disinformation. Now, Shauna, I would be charitable in my interpretation of that if it were just one instance. Let me give an easier one. Just by show of hands, does anybody believe the media's reporting about the origin of COVID-19 ran flatly in face of the facts that you have a Wuhan Institute of Virology that was now the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? You all said that it wasn't for a long time. By show of hands, was the Wuhan lab the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? Everybody, media or not. So you have reported, the same media that has reported that the COVID-19 pandemic did not originate in a lab in Wuhan is willing to even say, unwilling to admit today.
That report came out in 2023, so I guess.
It was known that there was a Wuhan Institute of Virology where they were conducting gain-of-function research, the very city which was the origin of a global pandemic, and yet the media's explanation was that somehow it could have been any source other than actually having started in a lab. I just think that that's systematically unacceptable. The Hunter Biden laptop. Is the Hunter Biden laptop story, as reported by the New York Post, which was shut down, had the Twitter account locked for anybody who is even sharing the story of the Hunter Biden laptop found on the eve of the last election? The media reported that it was Russian disinformation on the eve of that election. Does anyone here agree that the Hunter Biden laptop story, as reported by the New York Post, was indeed accurately reported and was not Russian disinformation, but was in fact a factually owned laptop of Hunter Biden? I mean, you got to, man. I mean, your paper reported it. Does everybody else seriously not believe that?
I mean, I believe that Hunter Biden is suing Rudy Giuliani over the laptop, so I don't think that's...
So you don't believe, so you think that it actually was the product of Russian disinformation, as was reported by the media? That was the basis for suppressing this at the time?
I didn't cover the Hunter Biden case.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we're talking about that.
Because it was election interference on the eve of the last election. And I think there's the same kind of election interference happening this time around. And I think it's happening, the early waves of it, with respect to the treatment of my candidacy. And I think that is likely to be a major problem heading into the next year, unless we're able to openly and transparently acknowledge the mistakes of the past. Without acknowledging the mistakes of the past, I think we are destined for an even more dangerous future. And I do not want to see a repeat of what happened in the 12 to 15 months leading up to January of 2021. I don't want to see that in this country. And I worry we're on a path to far worse than that until we have accountability 360 degrees for the mistakes that were made in that lead up. And the Hunter Biden laptop story and its suppression, Shauna, I do believe was a key part of the lead up to that. I think the suppression of the origin of COVID and the origin of the pandemic was a key part of the lead up to what happened in January of 2021. I think that the systematic suppression of speech in this country, even about debating the lockdowns, was a key part of what culminated in January 6, 2021. And as somebody who's looking to lead this country and hopefully, dare I say, reunite this country, I think it is critical, it is vital to the future of this country that we not repeat those same mistakes, and yet that's exactly what I'm seeing play out in slow motion, hiding in plain sight. And so it's my concern for this country that leads me to run for U.S. president. It's my concern for this country that causes me to raise what aren't some ancient issues to be swept under the rug. I think that history is relevant to what's happening today. And I will say, you ask thoughtful questions. You ask challenging questions. You ask thoughtful questions from time to time. I appreciate that. But I'm not. This is not some sort of contentious gotcha in reverse. I just think somebody in the media, like very soon, needs to stand up and do what I have suggested, which is to look your audience in the eye, any one network, to say, here's where we got it wrong last time. We're sorry about that. Here are the steps we're taking to make sure it doesn't happen again in this election. And I think that that will improve the integrity of this election. And I think it will improve the, frankly, future safety of our institutions over the course of the next 12 to 16 months, which I am deeply worried about in this country. I'm worried about it. As an American, I'm worried about it as a candidate. I think we're skating on thin ice. And I think we have limited time to shore up the actual support for this country that we're working with. And so that's why I'm saying what I am. Thank you for the extra time. We'll see you guys. Thank you.
Jones said, "If we don't have freedom of speech, we don't have freedom of thought. And since the mainstream media is controlled by wealthy individuals with political affiliations, this modality has created a propaganda machine in America. And this has led to despotic behavior on the left and on the right. So we, the people, need an outsider, someone willing to boldly speak the truth. And that seems to be what Vivek Ramaswamy is doing. With that said, and this is not an ad nor an endorsement, I would really like your thoughts on the topic. And there is more to this clip. Vivek even admits to not knowing, to what he should have known."
Thanks for that reporting. Good work, man. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sean, hey, I should have known the answer to that guy whose name you mentioned. I didn't know it. Yeah, okay, I knew who you were talking about, but I didn't know the name. So, for my part, I'll tell you, I should have known that, and I didn't. And if we're having a contentious conversation about white supremacy in this country, I didn't know the guy's name, and I should have. I just think it would be good for this country. I think you may be among those who may be in a position that I could bet on to do it. There's some colleague at CBS of yours who's actually he's doing some good work. But somebody needs to step up and actually go the distance. Even in his touching on, he's dancing around it. Look the camera in the eye and say, here's where we got it wrong. And then, you know what? That'll put politicians in a position where they're going to have to do the same thing. And I think that could be a beautiful thing for this country. And so I'm just saying that as human being to human being, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey. Hey.
All right, good.
Hey.
How's it going?
What's going on, man?
Randy, yeah, we're
Good to see you.
How are
How you
you?
doing, brother?
You doing all right?
How you been, man?
Okay, good.
Good,
Thanks.
good.
Yeah, like
Thank
that
you.
again. I'm not trying to bully anybody out the way, but again, just kind of been following you guys.
Malcolm,
along.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good to see you.
Been following you guys again. Of course, I miss Lovely White.
You did?
Everything
At the last event? Nice.
Yeah. And so, I mean, really, just a couple of questions. I'm not going to
Sure.
believe you because, man, you just put on a masterclass at that point.